Let's try this again, right? Oh my gosh. Please work. Oh, please work, please work, please work. Hi, Sarah. Oh my gosh. The craziness, the craziness, the craziness. Please. Oh, hi, Beverly. Technology hates me. It totally hates me. Oh my gosh. Hi, Christy. Hello. It was on the original craziness. I told you it hates me. Oh my goodness. Hi, Cindy. Hi, Terry. Hello, everyone. Hi, Courtney. Thanks for jumping on. Thanks for your patience. I apologize for the craziness.
I wonder why it said broadcast interrupted. Do you know?
Well, okay, so when it went to add you, the little pop-up thing, it froze and then it wouldn't let me add you. It wouldn't let me close down that little pop-up window. So it just completely freaked out. So then I'd exit out of everything. Hello,
Yeah.
Hey, hi, Beverly. I'm sorry, I missed some of your comments here. We finally figured out the whole side-by-side, but of course, technology and me, we do not get along. Hello, hello. Oh my goodness. So, all right, well, we'll just jump right into it since we're already a few minutes behind. First of all, I just wanted to say thank you to all of you who are continually just supporting us, sowing into us with your intercession and your encouragement. Even some of you have sown in financially. It absolutely leaves us just kind of in a daze, just sitting here going, God, this is really what you've called us to do in this moment. And it just leaves us extremely grateful. And that word just doesn't even encompass how we feel and how much we appreciate you guys. So I wanted to say that to kick this off. So the whole coming out of the caves thing, it's been this phrase that's just kind of been repeated just in my spirit over the last few weeks. But, life and all of that stuff, it just gets postponed. But I think, God's perfection is always that what may seem like a delay on our timeline is actually his perfection. And so it's given us time to just really listen and process what he wants us to share in regards to this. And when I started hearing that phrase, my mind just, hi, Dave. It feels weird calling you Dave. I'm used to calling you Mr. Music. Sorry. Squirrel. So as I was just listening to this phrase, my mind instantly goes to like David and Elijah and all this stuff. But as I really started asking the Lord, like what he was wanting to share with me, because it's always something that I need to soak in too. First, he had me look up the definition of cave. And so just a couple of the ones that really, hi, Rachel. The couple of the ones that really
I just want to
go ahead.
Say real quick hello to everyone. Once again, I had all of the comments slid off the screen. So I was like, okay. And then I realized, oh yeah, I have to slide that. So I wanted to just say hello to everyone. Not that I'm just sitting here, just like out in the middle of nowhere. Well, and just let everyone know, along with your no, you were fine. Along with your intro, like just to say, I stepped away for a while because I really wanted some time, just to reflect on some things that God is turning around in my own life and, bringing me out of the cave with, and also just spend some really good quality time with my family without the distraction of social media. So it was very difficult, especially with the family that we've built on here, to not interact as much as usual, but just know I was constantly thinking and praying for each of you, and just truly do appreciate you. So that said, the reason I wanted to make sure I said that was I was sitting here and people were coming on and I wasn't saying anything because I didn't see them. So,
I
and I
love
really appreciated, some people sent me some prayers while I took my time off and went into my cave, and I really appreciated that. Some prayers, some words, and it was just really, really awesome. So thank you.
it. Yeah. All right, let's dive right back in. That was awesome.
Yes.
Okay, so some of the definitions that really stuck out to me of cave were these. It was hiding place, a stronghold, a refuge or shelter, a grave, like place of burial, a secret place, and a temporary home. That one really resonated with me because I think sometimes we settle so much in those quiet places, in those shut away times where we almost feel like it's a permanent home. So to have that like as a confirmation just to me that, hi Trudy, that it's definitely a temporary home. And so in that, definition, uh, list, I noticed that there was at least 20 scriptures referencing the word cave. And the thing with the cave is that every single exit, it all has a pivotal outcome that, or not necessarily even exit. There's always a pivotal outcome with every cave moment, whether it's within the cave or when you're stepping outside of the cave. And we have to remember to not allow ourselves to have like a tunnel vision. There's a time to kind of close things out, but we can't allow that to be our constant point of view in those moments. And I really felt to just share this with someone that, I know how that feels a lot because, I had spent a lot of my life feeling as though I was living at a deficit. Like I just couldn't like quite catch up. I couldn't quite get to what you would call par, like level with this, that, or other people or anything like that. I always felt like I was less than or below or whatever. But what I wanted to encourage you, and is that in those deficit moments, that those voids and that emptiness allowed a lot of the burial of all of the negativity and all of the scars and the wounds that I was carrying, that allowed my mind to hold on to the thought of my life is at a deficit. I was allowed to bury that, and there are those legit voids and there are those legit empty places. But in that moment, once you kind of bury that, that idea that it's a negative thing, then the Lord just kind of comes in and he fills in and he overflows those voids and the emptiness with who he really is, and shows you who he has always been, who he is, and who he'll
Mm-hmm.
always continue to be. So with that, I just wanted to encourage you to remind yourself that, with each cave exit, it's always going to be a victorious one. Some of them are huge victories. And some of them are, just an encouragement, like, oh my gosh, I conquered this. I overcame this. But every exit is a victorious one. Did you want to add to that at this moment?
Yes. You know, yeah. Terry had brought up a very good point about taking off your grave clothes too. That goes along with one of the things that I had written down when I was in my quiet time, when we contemplate, Jesus's resurrection, and we realize that he has walked out of his cave, in victory, that the stone was rolled away after some time was spent in that cave, and I'm like debating it. I'm kind of paused because I'm like, oh, I want to bring up more about that, but just as Terry was saying about taking off the grave clothes, if we really think about the grave clothes, that just brought to mind that whole story we were talking about earlier, where David is such another example of that. he knew what it was like to be in a grave. If we go from Jesus, and then we're talking about him taking off his grave clothes, walking out in victory, and then we look at David, where he knew what it was like to be in the cave and hiding. His period of he had a period of mourning, of weeping, not eating, not socializing, covered in rags, and begging God to spare his child. Um, who of us have not had times like that? And, when he was in that place, and then realized that there was nothing more he could do, he had that time. He had that time of grieving and weeping and wearing his rags. And then his son did die. And immediately I want my, get me some good clothing, get me some food. I want to change. And he went ahead and he um, got dressed in his robes. Once something of ours has died, or once something in us has died, or once a part of our lives has died off, and we all have those circumstances, whether it's something that we've done or something someone else has done to us. But when the part of my marriage died, or when, I was through with my grieving of my father, I was done crying out, or many of the other things that we've gone through, when we can't change what has happened, that's when we have to realize that we cannot erase, we cannot bring those things back in a better state. They're gone. So we need to bury them. And as we've talked about, caves are often, a burying place, as you were bringing up the grave, bury them and then come out of our cave. We need to dress, we need to eat, we need to worship, and we need to experience the goodness of God once again, dressed in our robes. Take off those rags, take off those grave clothes, and put on our robes and worship God for where we are in our lives. And so there's just so much with all of that. There's so many instances, thinking of, if we talk about it being a grave place, how many times in the Bible is it mentioned where, I think back in Genesis, I read 5 times alone today, where caves were often used as burial sites. They were purchased just for that. And that's where we go, not just to die, not just to be buried, but to bury these bad moments of our lives. I've written many different pages on many reasons for caves, but that's one of the biggest things, is to bury something, to let it go, to put it in the past, and then walk out in that, instance of shedding off the rags and the grave clothes, and coming out in victory. Because we know that on the other side of anything is victory. There's no victory in the death of my father, but there's victory in walking through the process of dealing with that. And there's victory in overcoming the grief and realizing that God can use these things for our good, and that my father's already seeing God's plan from the other side. So there is goodness in everything, and there is victory in everything, even in a loss like that, and looking at my marriage and what had happened in that, there is victory in all of that. I've had a recent conversation with my kids, and that I wouldn't change what happened there. I wouldn't change going into that cave, but I'm so grateful to have come out of that cave and what that has brought me. So when Terry started bringing up the rags, I was like, oh, wow, like the grave clothes. I'm like, that can come from so many different angles. That can come from, the story of Christ's resurrection, or it can come from, David and him putting on clean clothes, sharing off his, the rags he was wearing. And here Terry's saying, again, Lazarus needed the help from others to take off his grave clothes. Jesus told the disciples to take Lazarus's grave clothes off of him. That's such, it's brought up so often, and just the fact that in the Bible, a cave was often a burial place.
Yeah.
That just meant a lot to me. It's not just a place for, going into the quiet and retreating. There's so many different reasons that we go into a cave, but that's just one of the biggest ones that stood out to me today.
And I love that scripture that you brought up, Terry, because that's what the church is supposed to be. This isn't even in my notes, but this is just, that's what this is. That's what, we envision this to be, is us individually as a church coming together, to help others take off those grave clothes and reveal that new thing, that resurrected thing, that fresh identity and vision of who God created you to be in the death of your old self. And sometimes we do need that community. We need that help. We need other people speaking life into us, and hearing that life being spoken
Yeah.
around just rips all of that old junk off. And oh man, I love that. I love that.
And I
uh,
just like how you brought it into that perspective, because I mean, and Terry's comment there, because I mean, that's the truth. That's what we need. That's the community we need. That's the church we need, where we're not ashamed to go to church, where we don't hide at home from going to church to talk about what reading Terry's comment again. That's what you both are doing. you know, we could hide at home. So often when we go through these things, through shame of something we've done or what's been done to us or something that's happened, say in our marriage, we hide in shame. We don't go into the church. We don't want to be condemned. We don't want to be whispered about and talked about. And then, you know, we don't see that somebody is there to help us take off our grave clothes, just as he was saying. So we tend to avoid that. And I really, that is the church's job. That is our community and our family in that place. And I want to see that transitioning happening, where you feel welcome in these areas where people are coming up to you and asking to do that for you, to take off your grave clothes and exchange them for robes. That's what we really need to be doing. And thank you, Terry, for saying that, because I hope,
yeah.
that is what we are doing. Sorry. I'm just
Oh,
getting a
that's
little
good.
emotional there. That's just like, that was really good, Terry. I really appreciate that. Good
Yeah,
comment.
it's good because I didn't really have that, and so I have spent a lot of time in my own cave peeling off this piece of grave clothes one by one.
Yeah.
But I think that's
Yeah.
been, that's where the Lord has taken maybe some negative things and turned them into something very, very good for me on an individual basis, because I know what that feels like to not have that community. So now I can, he's kind of empowered me to go looking for those ones that have kind of been shoved in, that rejected place. And I can
Yeah.
say, no, you're not alone. You don't have to be, that kind of thing. But I want to kind of take that and I want to tie it into what the Lord kind of took me on. He took me on this journey of these seemingly insignificant people throughout the Bible. Like I said earlier, when I started talking about coming out of the caves and cave times and all this stuff, my mind immediately went to David and to Elijah and all this stuff. But the Lord really started highlighting some of these stories that really are only, um, you know, like 2 verses. And that to me is just, there's so much to be said about that, because 2 verses sums up in our Bible someone's life for us to grasp a hold of. And man, when the Lord just really starts to unpack things for you in a new and fresh way, it just leaves you like floored. So the first one he took me to, this character really wasn't necessarily in a cave, but he really was. He lived his life under the label of his name. Back in the Hebrew culture, your name was your identity. I mean, yeah, we have our names, that's our identity, but it's so much deeper um, in that time. And I'm sorry, I should tell you who I'm talking about. I'm talking about Jabez. And this was in First Chronicles chapter 4, verses 9 and 10. 2 verses. And I've loved this little character for so many reasons. For one, it's a prayer that, I have found myself. Um, Thanks, Lori. It's good to have you on, sweetie. Um, I've prayed
Hi,
this
Lori.
so many times because it's so powerful. It just shows up in this long line of descendants from the tribe of Judah, and then there's two little verses highlighting this, profound, destiny changing prayer about this one guy by the name of Jabez. And in the scriptures, it describes him as more honorable than his brothers. His mom named him Jabez, which means born out of pain. So his name basically meant pain. But in the Hebrew translation, the word honorable in this verse is kavod. And kavod means glory. That was just like, like mind blown kind of thing, So, he, his mother named him pain, and yet he carried glory. He was more honorable than his brothers. He carried that glory. The verses are 1 Chronicles chapter 4, verses 9 and 10. So after a part of his life of living, I gotta stop bumping my table, sorry. After living under the identity of his name, he cried out to God, and this prayer was like 5 things. Like he listed 5 things that he wanted. Bless me indeed. Enlarge my territory. Place your hand upon me. And when you ask the Lord to place his hand upon you, you are asking him to mark your life. I mean, who doesn't want your life marked by God? I do. I want my life marked by him. I want his fingerprints all over me. I want to live in his miraculous nature. So I'm always like, Lord,
Amen.
mark me. So that was 3. Keep me from harm and free me from pain. I mean, I can't imagine the pain that this guy lived under. So this Jabez character, living under the oppression of the labels of other people's opinions, including his family, because of the way he was named, he had an understanding and a sight above and beyond all of that circumstance, all of that label, all of the stuff that he'd lived under for however long he lived under it. And he put his request before God. And remember, we said there was 5 things, but then at the end of that second verse, I said God granted his request. One request. I just thought that was really interesting that the Lord says, he granted his request, not requests, not his list. And the thing that the Lord gave me was that this is why it was a singular request granted, because everything that Jabez requested encompassed everything that the Lord had planned and purposed for him for the rest of his life, and caused him to step out, enlarged his territory, blessed him, marked him, freed him from pain, and kept him from harm. That was just so powerful to me. And 2 verses, seemingly insignificant, what processed him in that cave under that seemingly bad situation, that oppressive situation, so to speak, and yet he carried glory. He had that insight to just pray those things, and the Lord just, boom, you're done, coming out of your cave. Did you want to add anything to that before I?
I had to remark back on Xenia said about us both wearing black. Mine does look black, but it's it's navy blue, but it looks like we're wearing our grave clothes, our burial clothes, actually.
Kind of a weird camo.
Oh yeah, it is camo. So you're just blending into that cave.
Yeah.
And I think that's the biggest thing is like, we just have to realize that when we come to God and we're in those places of really truly needing him, he will show up to do, whether it's the one thing that changes our lives, or that pivotal thing, or it's many things. It's what he knows will happen. And sometimes it's that one thing that will be a domino effect of what it opens up for us later on in our lives. And so when we have seen some areas open up, like the stone being rolled away, and we're coming out of the cave, but we're only seeing a small vision. Our perspective hasn't opened up. We haven't walked out of the mouth of that cave. We're not seeing what is around us. Um, we cannot focus or believe that that is all that's out there waiting for us. That as we begin to come further out, and that that we're beyond the opening the mouth of the cave, then that's when we begin to see how he's opening up. And I think that was for me when I went into this cave, to kind of seclude myself and be alone with God and be alone with my family in the last couple of weeks. When I say to see what God is doing in my life, the perspective I was able to have from that view was that he was doing these things, that I was only seeing these things from this perspective. But as I stepped to the mouth of that cave, ready to come through and back out, that I was seeing what all was going to transpire from him opening up this one area of my life. That it wasn't just, okay, well, there's enough to provide in this circumstance or in this area, but he's completely manipulating everything that Marty and I are trying to do so that it can flow in the direction that we needed to flow in, and open up so many more doors for us. So I would not have been able to see that had I not gone into the cave, to kind of go deep and say, what is happening? Why is this not happening? Where are you in all of this? But then to be stepping out and to see, okay, well, he's done this, this, and this. Well, what if I walk out and these smaller things that I can see, and then see everything that's happening around me, and where that would bring us to in the end? And what he's doing is just completely magnificent. That is something completely out of our control. So, he's altering our business, our lives, my ministry, like everything is being altered, but it's being done by him. And I just have to know that when he's opening up one thing, it's opening up many. So I just was
Yeah.
thinking of that as you were talking about answering that one promise. I mean, even the revelation I'm just having right now, just in that one promise, the only thing I clung to, it wasn't in my depression about not of losing my identity as the one thing that I wanted to be for so long was a stay-at-home mom. I had my depression in that, it wasn't in our finances and the near loss of our home at one point. I could focus on all these things, but if I look at the one, like I asked him over and over and over again, the one thing I asked him beyond finances, beyond being able to stay at home longer, beyond everything was, please, please let my marriage survive all of this. Because even when we felt like things were good and that we were okay, there was still that question of, are we strong enough to walk through everything that's being thrown at us? And then, of course, the loss of my dad and everything else that transpired after that, it was like the one thing I kept asking for was, please let my marriage survive this. This is my one request. If I only have one, that's my one request. But that answer to that one promise has just opened up every other area, everything, whether it be a business together where we're working every day, or ministry where I would have never, ever stepped into classes that led me to you, who I thought lived in England, but lives in Illinois, who became not only, a good friend, but a sister and ministry partner. Like everything is coming from that one promise.
Yeah.
And I'm just now like even seeing that in what you were saying. So it's just like, wow, that's a good one.
Yeah. That is awesome. And it reminds me of yet another, insignificant, couple of verses, scripture in the Bible that the Lord brought me to. And this one was in 2 Kings chapter 4 verses, this one's 1 through 7. So it's a little more than 2 verses, but it's still, not a lot. And this is talking about the widow that's in need. Her husband passed away. She's got some kids, and, she's telling Elisha, she's like freaking out. Like, what am I going to do? We have debts to pay and all this stuff. And, and Elisha says, well, what do you have? Because it doesn't really matter like how depleted we become. We always have something. There's always something that we do possess. Okay. So he asks this widow, well, what do you have? And her response was, I have a little oil. That was it. And, so, I think the biggest thing that stuck out to me with this one on the forefront was, not to little. Oh, sorry. The echo caught me. Not to belittle or discount what we do already have possession of. What do we have? There was a lot of times in my cave time, or even in my journey, or whatever you want to label it, in this period of time, there were a lot of times where I felt so depleted that I just looked at the Lord and said, all I have are my tears that I'm crying over this or this or this. And guess what? That was my little bit of oil. And, and that was what I sowed with for a long time. And then I started to have like a little bit of strength to where, I felt like I could actually sow with some intercession, not just for my own situations, but I could step beyond my own situation and intercede for others, and have those tears for other people as well. So you're going to have those moments where you kind of go through like a depletion and a breaking apart. And that's not a bad thing, because he does, replenish and refuel you. But back to this story, so her response was a little bit of oil. And then Elisha tells her, go ask, your neighbors, the townspeople, for empty jars. And then his very specific, oh, sorry. Am I still frozen?
Okay. No, I actually said that underneath. You're not still frozen. You're good. Okay. I couldn't hear a word you were saying, and I was like, I'm not going to know how to respond, because that happened a little earlier, and I prayed to God, please give me the words to respond, because I only heard half of what she said. That's why it's been taking me, but it's on my end. It's not on your end. It's on my end.
Okay. So. I rebuke these connection issues.
Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. So Elisha instructed her, to go ask for empty jars. And his very specific instruction was, don't ask for a few. Because I think a lot of us, when you are in that depleted state, you kind of just meekishly and sheepishly kind of go, oh, could I just, have like one empty jar? I think that's probably how she would have been. And I think that's why he instructed her, don't ask for a few. Like, ask for as many empty jars as you can get a hold of. Like, he was encouraging her to have an abundant vision over her life in that moment where she had nothing but a little bit of oil. And I think we really have to remind ourselves of that even in the most dire circumstances, even in the deepest heartbreak, we have to keep, like that abundant vision over our life, like above and beyond our circumstances. Like we were talking last month, having a vision above and beyond those prison walls. We were talking about the lepers camp. You got to have sight set above and not where your current circumstances are, because your current circumstances, no matter how great or how bad they are, they limit your vision to what God has for you. It's always going to be above and beyond what you could ever ask, think, or imagine than your current circumstances, right? So this is what this lady does. She goes and they get a whole bunch of empty jars. They did the abundant request. So they brought all these empty jars, and then she was to start pouring the little bit of oil that she had from the one jar, and it could just continue to flow, and it filled every single empty jar. But when she did this, when she was instructed to do this, her instructions were to go in and close the door. So she was shut in to her home. And I think a lot of times we have more miracles that happen for us with our faith and with our circumstances
Yes.
that need to happen behind closed doors. You know, they can't necessarily happen all the time in front of everybody to witness and see. And the thing of it is you have to just kind of, at least for me, I've just come to a place where I almost prefer the door to be closed, because that's, you know, those transitional moments, that's those miraculous moments, that's those times where I see so much more clearly than when, you know, I'm not in that closed door moment. And you know, and then that abundant vision, you know, gave way for the miraculous provision. And you know, and this provision not only paid off her debt, but it also gave them enough to live on. That is above and beyond. She was
Yeah.
concerned about paying the debts after her husband passed away, but this miracle provided for the debt to be paid off and to continue to live on. And I didn't state the timeline that I recall, but that was just huge to me. And it's just, you know, grasping a hold of that, you know, like I said, you know, that abundant vision over your circumstance, and knowing that sometimes you're going to be instructed to just close the door and allow that miraculous thing to happen.
Yes.
um and like I said, you know, those miraculous things tend to unfold in front of you when no one else is looking.
Amen. I mean, I think that's just, I mean, just to, you know, reiterate what I was just saying was that, you know, I felt like some doors were closing, um, but they needed to close in order to open up what our biggest desire was. And so, you know, by allowing that to happen or not, you know, trying to prevent it and saying, no, 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 wait, don't close these doors. Don't let that happen. You know, you allow these things to happen, and then it turns into something for your good, just as he promised. You know, it's guaranteed that that's what is going to happen in every circumstance if we just allow him, and give him that power in our lives, because we have to yield to him to be able to then expect him to act, you know. And I'm so grateful for all the instances that are available to us in the Bible to see that he has done this time and time and time again, repeatedly, for so many. Why would he not be continuing to do it today for us now?
Right.
You know, people are moving through this life now and the busyness of it. Oh, Rachel, I wish we were both in the same room. Um, you know, but I just think that we need to rest in the fact that yes, there is so much more blessing, for us at the end. So I love when you pull nuggets like that out of scripture, Amy. It just really is such a blessing to come at it from another perspective. And it's so wonderful that God allows us, each time we open the word can be interpreted in so many different ways to help us, you know, learn and grow in the wisdom and knowledge that he's trying to teach us, and how we're supposed to walk out of these caves. There's just so many instances that everybody's like, why is the Bible so filled with doom and gloom? Well, you're missing the other side of that. You're missing the rising. You're missing, you know, everything that's good that came from that one instance that God is purposing through that, you know. And I'm just so grateful. It was just like the whole story of, you know, Elijah, and I'm not sure where I put that in my um, notes, but I think when Elijah was in the cave, he not only found protection and heard the clear voice of God, but it also led to the call of Elisha. So had he not gone into his cave, had he not walked through that, then the next great thing would not have happened. And so there, every single instance in the Bible, there was purpose in that cave. There was purpose in that wilderness. There's purpose in all of it. Just like there's purpose in just a few minutes ago, Sarah was talking about being in her third trimester. And I'm like thinking of, the birthing process of coming through, of pushing through, coming out of a cave. I mean, sorry if that's too graphic, but I mean, you're thinking about it. Think of what's birthed from that. Think of what is incubated in that period of time. What is pressed together and made perfect. What is grown in there. The amount of growth in that place. The perfection that is created and what his plans are. And so it was a funny comment, but you think about it and it's just such a revelation to understand that we have to be in those places. I think of, I've referenced this before, but like mine and Marty's first home was 333 Cove Road, and we were in the cove and the protection of God's wing, and I think of that as a place of a cave, and when Marty and I were taking one of Nate and Christy's online courses, and we were brought to the attention that he would wake up every night at 3:33, and what that meant to him in scripture, and that God was there and he was fighting his battles for him when he was too weak, and then later God is there. He's your protection, but he was on Mill Street and put through that refined, that Marty had to go through that time in his own cave, to be perfected and to be, sifted and to come out on the other side, and not to be, you have to be taken into that that place where you're very much alone, where the world might have influenced a lot of things that you did to cause your entrance into that cave. But when you're in there and you're alone and you're not listening to those voices, that is the time that you're available to hear God speak into what you're walking through at that point. And that's where you hear his direction to pull you out. And I agree, Terry. I really feel like our caves are more about the personal and intimate place of God. In fact, that I think was the first page of notes that I had even written in my quiet time, was, one of our biggest purposes is to walk in love. And so we must be filled with God's love. God is love. So why would we not be seeking him in that cave? Whether it's a place that we go for protection, which is also mentioned throughout the Bible. It's not only for a place of burial, but it's for protection. It's for so many things, that I was, looking through and just seeing the many different purposes. But one of the things is seeking him. And God, if we're to walk in love, how are we to be filled up with love if we're not in a place where love is all that we're taking in? And God is love. So we must spend time with him to receive it to the point of overflow and being able to bring it into other people's lives and allowing them to see his great love for us. So, when I stepped away this past month, when the world just was becoming so noisy for me, and I wasn't taking a lot of it in, but it was a distraction from me having really quality time with him. And reading my Bible and a devotion quickly is not quality time. I could literally spend hours just God and I alone, and I was missing out on that, so therefore I was missing the perspective of what he wanted to show me that he was doing, so when we hear him when we hear him clearly and we experience this love, that's when we're able to bring it to others. So we need this intimacy. We have to be in that place. And if we set aside time with our spouses, with our friends, with all these other people, why would we not? I'm coming to your home to see you and speak with you and be with you, or you and your husband have date time, or you go into your cave of your bedroom to like be alone and experience intimacy. Why would you not go somewhere that you can be alone with God? And so I seek my cave, um, when I want that intimacy. So to me, sometimes the cave, always, I think the cave is a good thing, because it always allows you to walk out into something new, something good, something lovely, but it's not so good when we're getting ready to enter it or we're in it. But looking back, I see the caves as a good thing. And now sometimes I seek the cave,
Mm-hmm.
you know.
Yeah, I mean, I'm with you on that, Terry. For a long time, I was just kind of in that cave, kicking and screaming, because I didn't want to be there. It was very lonely. It had a lot of moments of just feeling very dark and all of the negative stuff. Um, but then the Lord just kind of shifted my vision, like we talked about earlier, and and then I started to just kind of embrace it. And I still didn't like it. I still had my moments of complaining. Um,
Mm.
there's been a purpose, and a lot of those negative things. That's the real beauty of how God works. And I know you know this, but He takes those negative things, those hurts, the bad choices, all of those things, and he just shifts them and makes
Mm-hmm.
them something that you're grateful for. Like, I never thought I would be grateful for some bad choices that I've made, but I am. And it's because of me embracing that cave. And we this whole last about the last month to 6 weeks, it's really, I've talked about it several times. It's felt like a birthing time, a time to push, a time to come out of our cave. But I've also felt very strongly that if we haven't gotten to a place where we embrace our cave and understand the purpose of it, there's no
Mm-hmm.
way that we're going to have the power and the strength and the stamina to step outside of it. It's that preparation. And so we now that we're kind of coming to that entrance, and it's like, oh my gosh, is it time for me to step out? I don't know, maybe I need to go back in, because I'm not sure. Like, I found myself doubting, like, are you really having me step out of the cave? Like, I'm questioning if this is really like for me, or if this is for other people. And just to be honest, but it really is. And it's really ready time for those to step out of the cave who have been in that place, that they now feel empowered and strengthened.
Yes.
And you see all the good that it's come out of it. Like, you don't see anything negative laying behind you anymore, because all you do is you see the gold that's been hidden in those walls, that was created from your tears and sweat and all that stuff. There's nothing but beauty in that cave for you now. And I think when you're allowed to, when you have the vision to see that, that's really kind of your confirmation to say, okay, yeah, the Lord's ready to kind of move me out of this. um, and that, like we were saying earlier about that place of intimacy, I kind of shared earlier, you don't have those dreams. You don't become pregnant with those dreams and those visions over your life without that intimacy. And you most certainly don't necessarily birth that stuff out in the wide open either. That's all an intimate thing. Now, what the thing that you do birth, and the thing that you have those dreams and those visions of, that's what you walk out with. But the gestational time, like you were saying earlier, that all happens in that cave, in that intimacy, um, in that allowing him to just do his work within you and around you. Because not only do you have to be prepared to step out, outside needs to be prepared to receive you and what you
Yes.
have to give them.
Amen. Amen. I liked, above Lori said too about your character's grown in that place. And I have to say, like, each time I've stepped into the cave just to be alone with God, he's grown me in certain areas, whether it's in my insecurity or whether it's in me being more of me, and not fearful of being accepted or not accepted. So he's grown me in so many areas. And I absolutely agree with, it was in the cave that I stopped asking the why questions. Lori said, I didn't need to know why things happened anymore. And that's exactly right. I mean, in every area that I've mentioned so far tonight, like I didn't need to know why anymore. And in other areas of where I've needed to grow in security and things like that, I came out feeling refreshed and not even allowing certain things that were affecting me before to affect me now. And I just find the growth that's in there to gain is amazing. And that just takes me back to Sarah being in her third trimester, how much growth takes place, when we're in there, and we need to be in there a certain time, pregnancy, certain time, Jesus before his resurrection, a certain time, Lazarus before he was raised from the dead, a certain time, and you had to wait for that one thing before you could step out. To lighten the situation, I popped my eyes down at one of my notes, and I'm still laughing about I'm sorry, but I'm like the kid, that just laughs at stupid things when people say a word, and it's just a funny, like I'm a little elementary school person. But when I was reading 1 Samuel 24, and Saul went into the cave to relieve himself and found relief, um, because he was protected. David didn't attack him. He wasn't killed, and he was able to walk out of there. We can look at that in a couple different ways. He went in and he was protected. He went in to relieve himself, and he experienced great relief. Or a third way where he went in to rid himself of the yuck and leave it behind.
Exactly.
Sorry.
Who would have
But
thought
the
that
revelation in that one scripture was overwhelming to me. Oh, sorry.
But you know what?
But I mean, it's just,
we're laughing, but there is not a single word or sentence that is insignificant in the Bible. Like, there's a reason why
exactly
Lord put that there, So
yeah, why would we need to know that Saul went into the cave to go to the bathroom?
For our revelation,
I mean, there's so many ways.
I love it.
Oh, I'm glad someone appreciates my sense of humor, Terry, because that was something else I learned in the cave. During this time, this most recent time, I had the company of a very good friend. I haven't seen her in a while. And she is someone that I literally said to her, I said, you are me, except you have allowed yourself to be who you are so much sooner in your life. She doesn't care who's watching, and the love and the joy just comes out of her, and she doesn't care if she looks ridiculous. And she doesn't care who laughs at her. She doesn't care who puts her down and tells her she's ridiculous. She's just who she is. sorry, but I literally briefly grieved that person that I never allowed to be.
Yep.
Sorry, but I never, from like middle school through my 30s, you know, if I drank, I did the funny thing that I would have thought of doing when I was sober, but didn't have the nerve. And people would have laughed just as much as they did because I was doing it because I was a little tipsy, as opposed to, you know, they would have just laughed because I was just doing it.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I just lost so much time not being who I was. Really, I hid behind this mask. I thought I needed that, you know, and that's just a small section of my life, but it was something that, you know, it popped up here and there. You know, it was the reason that I drank underage, you know, when I was in large crowds. It was the reason, you know, in my upper 20s when I was around certain people that made me feel less than. It was, you know, in my upper 30s when I lost my identity to like just be okay again, you know. And I didn't mean to go into all this, but sometimes our caves can be much longer than a 9-month period, a 3-day process, you know, whatever you want to term with my marriage or anything like that. It can literally be over a lifetime. And that was something that went from the last day of 8th grade all the way up until just a few years ago, where it was a crutch to allow myself to be who I really was inside. I was that silly and that goofy, but this allowed me to be that way and have an excuse for it. So
Yeah.
I'm grateful to be out of that cave, because now I'm just ridiculous talking about Saul relieving himself in a cave, and I don't care.
Exactly. Well, you know,
Oh,
I spent
sorry.
a good portion of my life just floundering around doing whatever I wanted to do. So yeah, you know, my cave period has been a long time. It
I
well,
like Lori's prophecy there. Anne Marie, I prophesy an embracing of your inner dork. We have to stick together. Yes, Lori,
um,
we do. Because Lori, I still, every single time I pass one of those like blow men that just like are like I laugh hysterically, and I'm like, I really need that for Christmas. I just really need my own. So, and I love that about you, Lori. That's one of my favorite things. You just don't care. You just don't. And I can be a dork with you, and it's okay. So,
yep,
thank you,
love
Terry.
it,
Love you too.
love it, love it. Awesome.
Didn't mean to go there. Sorry, but it felt
Not,
good. I mean, I have more to talk about than some of the things that I've talked about going and going and going. That's
but
right,
you know what we
Lori. She's resurrected.
resurrected and
Go ahead. Sorry, I
restoration.
just was reading some of the other.
No,
Yeah.
I mean, we've only said, you know, we allow the Lord to just, you know, prepare us for these things, but we're also open for Him to just let us talk about whatever, you know. We're always
Yes.
let it go. Who cares?
You know, again, I think I talked about one time when someone mentioned about putting us in our box, putting people in a box, or putting God in a box, and all
mhm.
that stuff. That's the last place I want to be. I want to be so outside the box. Um, if you have never, if you want to hear a fun song and just dance and be silly, go into YouTube and type in Out of the Box. And if a Disney show comes up, play the intro song to that show. And you will be like dancing out of the box, out of the box. I mean, it goes on, but I'm not going to like kill you with that. I'd have to bury you in a cave.
Oh my gosh.
Oh, Terry, that's the beauty of this, though. The more that we are ourselves and the more that we walk in what God has purposed us for, we find more and more of the people that are more like us.
Mm-hmm.
And we're crazy in a great way, crazy fun. So people
Absolutely.
don't think we're fun, they're missing out.
Completely missing out.
So
Oh my goodness.
I'm all emotional now. Marty bought me some Cherry Garcia Froyo to have as one last big, humongous, bad night. And I'm like thinking about it.
Oh my gosh. Hilarious. Um,
I think that's why Amy and I like do this together, because we can laugh with each other and we can just say anything and still laugh about it. I don't think we really honestly get upset or angry or mad or even offended with each other. The other day did something and I think I wrote Amy back. I said, I'm going to punch you in the face. And she knew immediately that I was like being lighthearted, but I was like, are you serious? You know, but we can say whatever we want to say and just, we adore that
yeah.
in one another. And there's no questioning it. It's just like, okay, I'm going to let you have this, but you know, I'm saying it all in fun because I love you so much. So, oh, Suzanne is just hopping on. Yay. Hey, Suzanne.
Well, and she did because, my brain was like squirrel, squirrel, squirrel. And, I had already talked to her about one thing, and then all of a sudden I'm throwing her all these other things. And she's like, are you serious? Mm-hmm.
I'm going to punch you in the face.
Yes, I am. Oh my gosh.
And like, I would have thought, oh, it's totally okay, Sarah. I referenced you several times though in your pregnancy, so you may want to rewatch. But it's so funny. Like, I would have rethought saying that to anybody else because they'd be like, "Oh my gosh, she's mad at me," and I was like, "No,
She's violent."
Oh, and I actually really broke down and couldn't stop Sarah. So about something completely different that I hadn't even talked about. Oh my goodness. It's been a good time. Oh my gosh. And Terry, yeah, God has said some crazy fun things in my life. And it's really okay. So yeah, I'm not going to go there. That's another 45 minutes. Never mind. I was just kidding.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yes. Silliness is raining, Lori. That's a good thing. Yay.
Yes.
I love being able to be myself.
There's no other way to be.
You're frozen on my one screen, and I'm kind of watching my other one to see if you say something.
I'm saying
So
something.
weird.
Is it my end or is it your end?
So, but I think it's mine. I'm not really sure why. Maybe because Marty and George are watching something on Netflix. It might be sucking up something in the house. I don't know.
Oh, okay. Okay.
So,
Okay.
no, Sarah, I was talking about your pregnancy and just being in the cave, and then and then I just went on about a story about myself and not being as silly as I would have liked to have been most of my life, because I felt like I needed to hide that part of me away. And it was actually what Marty loves best, what other people that, are lifelong friends of mine actually love the most about me. So they're happy that I'm being as dorky as I am. So I thank you for Suzanne for saying we look so cute, because I feel like really weird. We figured out this whole double screen thing at the last minute, finally, because we've been trying it, then it doesn't work out, and then we try it and it doesn't work out. So now we have it, but I quickly stuck my phone into something where I'm sitting very short, and it makes me not be able to see my notes. So like I just finally gave up and just was like, whatever, I'm just gonna talk about what God places on my heart. And I just feel really short and I try to sit on my foot and my foot fell asleep. Um so that's what all of this was about. And I'm trying to be comfortable. And then I put my other knee under me, and that was the knee I dislocated 2 years ago. And I'm like, this really hurts. Can I move again, or will I look really crazy? So, anyway. Hi, Poppy. We're waving back at you.
Hi.
Hey, Poppy. We love you. You're the best. We love watching your videos, Poppy. You need to do some lives and talk to us.
Yeah.
Give us Poppy's perspective.
I love that.
That would be good.
Love you, Poppy girl.
So, did you have anything else this evening?
Well, you know, I mean, the Lord just kind of, he had me study one other character, again, another couple of verse character, and I'm just kind of sitting here going, do we even dive into that again? I don't know. I'm just kind
That's up to you. Or we can always have part 2, because we did say it was only part 1 when we threw it out there, right? And this is part 2.
I think that was
3.
part 1 from last month.
I'm forgetting. I haven't been on vacation that long and forever. It was like a beautiful thing. I missed everybody, but it was just fantastic. So I said to Amy today, I said, I like forget certain things. It seems like it's been forever.
Well, you needed it. That was a good, well, and it was good for me too. Just having that extra quiet with all of my chaos.
Love you too, Terry. And it's okay. I think we're probably going to wrap it up shortly anyway.
Yeah, I think we will. And I think we'll just go ahead and save this for maybe next week.
Yeah.
We'll dive in, because I think I really just kind of felt like, you know, we needed to really just spend time on talking about the purpose of our caves, you know, that the purpose of that quiet, that secret place, that grave. Because like I said earlier, you know, we have to have a deep understanding, appreciation, and gratitude for that dying off and for that cave time, so that when we are, you know, called out to tackle that thing outside, you know, we're empowered to do that. And that really will work with what the other characters that I have. They were the ones outside the cave. Maybe we'll tackle that next week. And
I think that would be good. There were a few things that I didn't even bring up, and I think I would like to save those for next week too. And we'll pick a day that works for both of us and go from there. Because I think this is a 3-parter possibly. You know,
it's possible, yeah. I don't think either one change our hair color. I'm trying to keep
I know.
gray.
Although you were a little bit didn't you have a little bit of reddish in one of your pictures from the past? Like it was reddish, more reddish.
Well, my natural hair color is like an auburn color, so it's like a chestnutty brown with some auburn in it. Since it's decided to freak out on me, and I'm not going to grow old gracefully, I've picked like this fun purpley red color. So it's not natural.
Purple's not natural?
Well,
I never thought it was purple though, but it's more like wine.
Yeah, ruby noir. It's the color.
There you go. I like it.
Okay. All right. So I think that's what we'll do. We'll plan on part 2 for next week, where we'll actually talk about outside the cave and actually stepping out and what that what that looks like. And I'm sure the Lord will have more to say about that. So,
Absolutely. And I'm looking for lots of time on my porch this week. So in
yeah,
the evening.
yeah. So obviously, if you guys, if you have anything that we could pray for or anything like that, just either comment or you can private message us, and would love to be honored to pray with you through whatever it is that you're walking through. And we'll go ahead and shut it down for tonight, and we'll see you next week.
Yes. Thank you
All
all
right.
for joining us. We love you. Thanks for spending your Friday night with us.
Yes, love you guys. Thank you so much. Talk to you later.
Bye-bye.